the City of Douglasville. I'm Councilwoman Dr. LaShawn Bird-Danley, and I'm here with my colleague, Councilman Sam Davis. We are here again in 2022 with continuing moments in Black history. Councilman Davis, can you believe that we've been doing this for how long now?
Yes, it's going on 12 to 14 years. And to all the listening audience abroad and at home, we want to say hello and thank you for 2022. And we have a good audience out here today. We have about 3 or 4 out. They have some questions for us today, so we're going to be able to take care of business with our guests. Thank you.
Well, I am so delighted to welcome our guest today. Our focus this year for 2022 is we're focusing Black history on education, our first responders, and our youth. And you, ladies, are our first guests for 2022, and we're going to give you a moment to introduce yourselves, who you are, but we want to hear, Councilman Davis, you said we're focusing on Hutchinson High and R.L. Cousin.
R.L. Cousin, and I don't believe they're a little bit too young to know about Hutchinson High, but we'll throw it out there.
All right, we'll throw it out there. And see, I wasn't even born. So I have a lot to listen, and this is going to be really exciting. So ladies, if you'll introduce yourselves if you were married, if you were teaching here in Douglasville before the schools were integrated or segregated, can you please give your name then and then give your name today as well? We'll start here.
Okay. My name is Georgie Hall Danley, and when I came to this county, it was my first year of teaching. So I got thrown into everything.
So you was a baby.
Exactly.
Fresh out of college?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I had graduated in the spring of '67 and came here and started teaching.
So where did you graduate from?
Payne College in Augusta.
Payne, oh my God.
So you came immediately, Douglasville.
Yeah, went by my dad's house and came.
Sent your own to work.
Yes, before they threw the job to somebody else.
Okay.
No, Mr. Stewart was really nice on the phone. He called me, I think, one night and asked me would I be interested. I had put some application out, and he asked me would I like to come to Douglas County, Douglasville to teach. And I said, well, I got another offer, and it was in Florida. So I had to think about it. So I chose this because my sister-in-law was living here.
Oh, okay.
My brother had married, and she was going to have a baby. So I ended up in Douglas County.
Oh, so that's how. So you didn't know anyone except for your sister-in-law?
Nobody but myself.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody.
Okay.
She lived in Villa Rica, by the way.
All right.
Okay.
My name is Priscilla Graham. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I came here in 1962 when I got married. When I started teaching here, my name was Gober. And I came to Douglas County because during the time that a school year ended or you were pregnant, we did not have maternity leave. So I left Marietta system and came here to Douglasville to teach in 1966, and I stayed here to 1972.
Oh, 66. So that's the year I was born.
Oh.
So what was the name of your college? Was it HBCU?
I went to several. I finished junior college in Birmingham, Alabama, which is Daniel Payne Junior College.
Okay.
I left Daniel Payne and I went to Allen University, Columbia, South Carolina, and I did not like that, but my father made me stay. So I transferred to Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama,
Yes.
and that's where I finished.
Oh, right.
Hey,
And finally,
homegrown.
My name is Dorothy Danley Sparks, and I am homegrown.
You had to go to school.
You mentioned Hutchinson High School, and I went there. I went there in the 9th grade with Mr. Stewart being my first teacher.
wow.
Wow, at Hutchinson High School?
Yeah, we're the same age, and I'm not that much older than them. They're just not from here. But I graduated from R.L. Cousins because that was a new school. In 1959, I graduated from R.L. Cousins High School. Went to Clark College in Atlanta. It's Atlanta University now. Clark Atlanta University. And that's where I got my first degree, Bachelor of Arts in Social Studies. And then I came here, and Mr. Stewart asked me to come. I got finished in 3.5 years. So I was at home, and he had heard about it. He asked me to come and sub because Mrs. Dawes, Miss Hattie Dawes, which was one of their strong teachers, but she had become ill. So I took her place from March, and I did March, April, May, and in May, he asked me did I want to come into the office and sign my contract.
Oh.
And I said, well, yeah. And I did sign the contract, and I taught in Douglas County for 32 years.
Wow.
And that was from 1963 to 1995.
Wow, how amazing. So your teaching, you taught history, social studies,
Mm-hmm.
and Miss Graham, you taught
Language arts, English.
English, and Miss Danley.
1 + 1 = math.
So is that what you wanted to teach? You wanted to teach math, literature, and social studies?
I did. My major was really kind of in behavior science, so I taught more of psychology and sociology and anthropology. But I did do history as well.
Okay. You have any questions?
Yes, for Miss Sparks. I tell you, and you remember Hutchinson High, and you went to school with some of the kids that you probably taught.
Uh-huh.
So,
And I'm amazed. At Hutchinson High, who taught you at Hutchinson High? Some of the teachers.
Miss E.L. Brown, do you know who she is?
No.
Miss Brown?
Mr. Stewart was the principal. But Miss Brown, I think she was the only one. No, Miss Gilkey, Mr. Mitchell, E.L. Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember him either?
I'm familiar with Mr. Mitchell and Miss Gill.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Bice.
Now he was over there as well. He was the principal at one time. Mm-hmm. He was the principal when Mr. Stewart was teaching.
So Mr. Stewart used to teach at the school.
Hutchinson High?
Hutchinson High School. Mm-hmm. He taught me in the 9th grade.
Was he the basketball coach also?
I didn't play basketball. I had to catch the bus to go home.
Right.
So we are speaking of Hutchinson High, R.L. Cousin. All of you taught during the time of segregation. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. How interesting. So, can you tell us what challenges did you experience teaching in a segregated setting during the time of Hutchinson High? What did you experience? What were the challenges? If you were going to compare it with the white schools.
You know, when you have started something, that's what you know. So we were teaching all black kids,
Right.
all black faculty and everything. So, you know, you were used to it. So it wasn't anything you could compare it with until you got to the other part of the spectrum.
So what were the challenges just in the segregated school? Was it attendance, students coming to school? Was it communication with parents? And you all can chime in. What was it that you experienced then?
I don't remember we didn't have a lot of problems at R.L. Cousins.
Why do you think that was? When you say problems, you mean behavior?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think?
And parents, conferences and stuff like that. I don't remember any. But I was in high school now, so that make a difference. Probably.
Okay.
I was in the city of Marietta, and when I first came, I taught elementary school. I taught first grade, and I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I will not do this again. So I went from elementary school. They made a law that you had to teach according to your degree, and my degree stated from grade 7 through 12. So after so many years, I had to go to what we call middle school.
Okay.
I told, during that time, I taught in the city, so therefore I probably wouldn't have had the challenges that some of the other schools had.
Things like that.
But as teaching in a black school, I did find out that our salaries were different. We made less money than our counterparts. And it wasn't until the schools were integrated that the salaries became equal. In some sections, I know when I went to Allen University, they paid you according to your score that you made on your test.
Wow.
So I was thankful that I didn't have to go through that because I didn't know whether I would pass tests like that or not, because they are so diverse
Right.
in whatever it is that they are testing you on. But the challenges, I didn't see many challenges in our black schools because we were alike, you know, and I did not see the differences until 1967 when we integrated Douglas County High School.
So when you got the call that some are sent, some had to go, or some are called. So did you get the phone call telling you that you was going to have to go to the next level school?
It was not a phone call.
Uh-oh.
We were in the building at Aria Cousins
Okay.
where we were told that we were being transferred from Aria Cousins to Douglas County High School. And there were 7 of us. Mr. George, Linda Cooper, Miss Calhoun, I forgot her first name, Mr. Bell, Georgie, Dorothy, and I.
So did you all come together and say, should we go or should we quit or do something different?
If you wanted a job, you went. So we went, and we didn't know what to expect, but
Right.
we did go. And I wasn't apprehensive about it. You know, it was new turf, but you know, you wanted to teach, so you went and you taught. You know, we were not. All of us had different experiences in that transfer.
Right. So, Miss Georgie Daly, what challenges did you experience during that time? Did you, as far as parents or communication, just in general?
Okay, first of all, let me go back for a minute. I was going to be an attorney because my parents were very they were activists, and we got crosses burning in our yard and etc. My dad had 7 children. He said, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to send you to school, get an education. And my mother was the first registered voter in Terrell County at
Is
that
that
time.
Alabama? Excuse me. Was that
was
Alabama?
in
That's
Augusta.
Georgia. It's in
Georgia.
No, Terrell County.
Terrell County.
That's near Dougherty County, Albany.
Okay.
Oh, so that was right there at that line, almost on the, okay.
Yeah. And so that's what I was going to do. I was trying to let you know what I was going to do.
Go
But
ahead.
Because of what your family experienced and what you saw. Okay.
I want to be an attorney so I could do something because it was so bad, you know. And so my dad sent me to school, his choice, because there was 7 of us. My brother went to Payne and Augusta. I did not want to go. I wanted to go to South Carolina because they had a major in political science. And once I got where he chose, I chose my minor, which was mathematics at that time. And I said, well, and I didn't know student teaching whatsoever. And so once I taught that first year, even though I went just like Dorothy and Priscilla, I enjoyed the kids, and I said, this might be what I'm going to do. So I took classes so I could be certified to teach high school.
Wow.
And I guess I fell in love with the kids over there because those kids were very respectful, very nice to me. Not what I expected, because the first day we got over there, everybody was looking out the window, you know, like, who are these animals? But the kids were different. The ones that I taught, they were different. They were very respectful. I think I got most problems from the administration. One day I was teaching math. The principal walks in my room and trying to tell the kids how to do Pythagorean theorem, you know, another way. And then he called me to his office and he said, you need to maybe take some classes because the kids in your class don't understand your dialect. And I said, what is my dialect? He said, well, you don't talk like us. And I said,
Was this during you're segregated or integrated?
integrated.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Integrate.
Let me hear the rest.
Yeah. And I said, well, this is the best I can do. And so I don't understand dialect. I said, because that means you guys got a dialect as well. And so maybe he was afraid to punish me, but I just said what was in my mind, because that's my daddy. You know, he said what's come up comes out. And so as far as problems, I didn't have any issues.
So during the segregation, I'm hearing all of you say that during the time that you were segregated, there were the family, the parents were very active. The students were, because you knew each other, you looked like each other, so you went to church together. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. So you talked about one day you received the message that some of you were going to have to go to integrated. So prior to that, how did you hear all of this was about to happen? Was it just
See, we didn't hear it.
It didn't leak out?
We just got there that day on our
This
way.
was first day of school.
Yeah, first day of school, and Mr. Stewart was out there standing in the foyer talking to all of us and telling us where we would go. The elementary teachers went to the elementary school, middle school went to middle school, high school went to high school.
Did some of you all start crying? Like the students was
No, they
crying,
wanted
they
to
didn't want to
work.
go? A lot of us
Did
didn't
y'all
want to go.
did you?
No, my problem was that I didn't have an automobile, and so I'm saying I walked to this school. How am I going to get to Douglas County? And my friend here, I mentioned that to her. She said, "Well, I'll take you home, and I'll pick you up every morning."
Isn't that?
So we have Miss Sparks and Miss Danley. So you were here from down south. So you came up to Douglas County, and you had no family here except for your sister.
She lived in Villa Rica.
So where did you stay during that time?
A boarding house.
And where was that? Was that close to the
That
school?
was on Dallas Highway.
Was that Miss Brown?
Miss, how can I?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I know her name, but I've forgotten.
You see,
She lived in a white. Thank you.
Is the
It's a
house
white
in
house on the hill. Found like a store there, like you're going over a curve.
A
Miss
boarding
Hope.
house.
Miss Hope.
Miss Hope.
Miss Hope. Yeah, Miss Hope.
Miss
So-
Hope.
And
Your
how did
husband
you?
name was George Hope?
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
anything about
Okay.
Did you know them?
Yes.
You did.
On Hope Drive.
Where is
That was on Hope Drive. That was my
Where would
relatives.
that be now?
Where C.B. Jones up that used to be a drive up through there.
Down Conquest Street.
Behind Jamie Johnson Cafe.
Oh yes, okay. Which now is close to Stewart Middle School, which would be over in that area. I'm just trying to visualize
in
where
that
would it
area.
be.
you know, going back to our first experience at Douglas County High, well, as Dorothy and Georgia were saying, we got the information when we got to school, the first day of school. So we went to Douglas County. We had faculty meeting in the library, and I sat down.
This is day one.
Day one. And the teacher that I sat next to got up.
Wow.
So I could do nothing but turn around and look and smile. You know, that was my first day experience, and I said in my mind, Lord, is this what we're going through? You know, so I had, the children were fine. The faculty was another story. I got into more trouble, I think, in a few days than I have been in all my lifetime, because I didn't participate in the marches and stuff like that because I didn't take much. You hit me, I hit back.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I did. My mother prayed me out of that. But the point being, my classes, I taught English. My major was social studies, but because I did not take history classes of Georgia, coming from Alabama, they did not certify me in social studies. So I took the next thing that I had, which was English. We called it English back in the day, but then they changed it to language arts, etc. I let my children read a book called A Choice of Weapons by Garden Parks. And in reading the book, there were different things in there that the children just didn't know because it was not talked about in the homes.
Such as?
Such as riding the bus, the black sit in the back, and you know where I come from in Birmingham, they had signs on the bus.
Yes.
And I used to get so aggravated because my grandmother had to get up and give somebody a seat, and she's a grandmother and you younger than I am. We talked about that, and we talked about, in Garden Park's book, A Choice of Weapons, he was talking about his parents died early, so he lived with his older sister and her husband, but the husband was not too kind to him. So he had to make a living to help out. But as an adult, he began to play in a band. He could travel with the white band, but he could not go into the hotels, and he could not eat with them. Mm-hmm. They had to drop him off. And he was talking about the difficulties that he had growing up. But the choice of weapons that he used were to elevate himself, to become better than he had experienced. Now, Gordon Parks was a photographer. He was a musician. He was an author. He was an actor. And he wrote for Life magazine for years. So that's how accomplished he was. But anyway, to make the long story short, after I had picked up George one morning, I stopped at this little store after we crossed the hump, and I get this newspaper. Teacher reprimanded for letting kids read some sorted book.
I wonder who that teacher was.
And when I got to school, I said, Lord have mercy, it's me. The more I read, the more I found out they were talking about me. And they had gone into my file cabinet and had gotten the books.
Oh, wow.
And can we call names?
Yes, you call names. This is
the principal, Mr. Alexander, called me into his office.
Okay.
And he was saying that he could get this trash down on 10th Street or 14th Street. I didn't know what he was talking about. He was talking about Atlanta. I'm from Birmingham. I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So my smart mouth said, if that's the only place I can find this book, then I'll go down there and buy it. But I was sent. It was ugly. They took up the books, mm-hmm. but the children went out and bought them on their own. Mm-hmm. And good. That blessed me good. Because it let me know that they were interested in things that had happened. But then they were trying to find a way to fire me. And I think Horace Tate was the state superintendent of schools.
Horace Tate.
And when I mentioned Tate and some of the other organizations that I belong to, they let me alone because they were afraid of Horace Tate. But as I said earlier, when we became pregnant, we had to resign our post. Oh. So my last child was born in 1972. He was due in May. I had to come out before that semester. And some years later, I stayed out with five years with him, but when I reapplied to Douglas County, I was told, if you sell your house in Marietta, I consider rehiring you.
So you had to live where you worked as a teacher.
That's what he said, but I wasn't living here in Douglas County when I was teaching here prior to.
Right.
So I applied to Marietta. And when I did that, the superintendent in Marietta told me that some things on my record from Douglas County, that he couldn't hire me because of some things on my record in Douglas County. Okay. I got into my car and I drove to Douglas County Superintendent's office and I asked to see my file. Of course, they did not let me see my file.
They didn't have it.
So I mentioned Horace Tate again. And when I got back to Marietta, I had a phone call stating for me to come back to the superintendent's office in Marietta, and I signed a contract that day.
Wow.
But only because of the name of Horace Tate.
Relationship.
But it just let you know, if you said something that they did not like, they tried to blackball you. Mm-hmm. But our jobs were to do the best teaching that we knew how. Another incident at Douglas County.
So can I interrupt you just for a moment? Ms. Sparks, I'm going to let you get back. So you taught social studies. So the two of you went to Douglas County. Ms. Danley, did you stay? Did you go to integrated? Were all schools integrated or?
All in Douglas County.
Oh, all in Douglas County. Okay, so all of you went to Douglas County?
There was no Lithia Springs.
I transferred to Lithia and then Alexander.
Okay,
Yeah.
I remember you
I
being
checked
at
them all the
Lithia.
schools out, see what they doing right.
See, it was one high school.
Yeah.
All of us had to
was
be
in
the
so when
same.
they-
Okay.
Yeah, so when they built Lithia, I transferred to Lithia.
So what happened to R.L. Cousin?
It became Stewart Middle
Stewart
School.
Middle. So during integration, Stewart Middle School. So when you taught social studies, and we're talking social studies with students that are integrated, what were you allowed to teach, or what did you teach?
I taught the lessons. I didn't have anybody to be upset or that kind of thing. I don't remember ever being called in on anything like that because it was just regular textbook stuff.
Okay.
And Miss Graham was trying to help the kids, by letting them be exposed to in English and literature and that kind of stuff. And that was what they didn't like. But we had books that were given to us already if you wanted to use it. And then I used a lot of books in my class too, like Dibbs and Search Yourself. You remember all those books? If anybody took psychology from me, they remember all those books we did. But it was a good class all the way through. I started with social studies, and I think the second year I began doing behavior science. And my classes weren't large at that time, but by the time I got ready to retire, I had all behavior sciences because I taught psychology. So everything there went pretty smooth for me for a while.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Graham, okay, let's get back into, because this is great.
As I said,
Yes.
most of us were
So you
treated
was a
little
leader
different.
then, Miss Graham. You was
Excuse
from
me?
being from Alabama. You was a leader. You came in. So all the other teachers, the black teachers, they would come see you
What?
when they wanted to.
They did not talk about their experiences to me. So I don't know exactly
I wonder
what
why.
they were going
Why
through.
not?
Up until Georgia went to Lithia, and then I heard about some things that she was going through.
Okay.
But you remember when they gave out yearbooks? They gave a day for signing and all this kind of thing. Well, the children found something in the yearbook that was funny, and we were laughing. So, I mean, any little nitpicky thing they could find, they would get you. Mr. Cloris stood by my door and said, "We don't have that type of behavior down here."
You were just laughing and having a with
Yes,
your
and I
students.
said, "Well, we had it where we came from if it's funny." Fast mouth, you know. So he did not like that too much. But I was not trying to be smart, but I was tired of being talked down to. And I'm trying to do a job. The children were signing yearbooks, and in a yearbook you can find anything that you want to find, and they found it and said, "Turn to page such and such and so," and I turned, and there it was, and we all laughed.
Wow.
But it was just little nothings. I went to teaching English. The kids had to go to the library, and so the librarian had said that on a day that you did not bring your whole class, if someone needed to come, you can let them come 5 or 6 at a time. I think her name was Wash. She married Mr. Wash. He taught downstairs, and she was a librarian. But anyway, I
I
sent
don't remember her, but I remember him.
one group. They came back, and I sent another group because they were doing individual assignments that day. So that was the only time they had to go and check out the books. And she sent them back and said that the library was not a circus.
Pardon me?
In and out.
Wow.
So I left my students in my classroom, which is against the law. And I told her, if they could not come and use it, why isn't a lock on this door?
Wow.
But you were integrated. Is that right?
Yes, this is Douglas County High.
So you were
I
integrated.
was turned into the principal again.
So I'm hearing you say the students were fine. Now I understand why you said it wasn't the students. The students were
great.
the students were integrated. They were great. It was the
They were
adults that were keeping up all the ruckus.
It was.
So,
And
wow.
with this same book, that one student that did not do the assignment, gave it to his mom, told his mom, showed him her the book, which she should have seen anyway if he was reading it. And she called the principal, and they had a meeting that night and went to my classroom and took the books up.
So, Miss Sparks, I'm sure because you all knew each other. So you talked about this after work, all of the things that were you taught, and then you went home. Did you talk about? Did you encourage each other? I mean, all of you. I mean, how did you encourage what you were? How did you support or encourage Miss Graham? Did you talk about it?
Not really. I don't think.
Yeah.
You just
The only thing I know that came from the results of that book was that West Georgia College started teaching it because of
because of that.
Mhm.
Wow. But so did you all talk about the challenges that you were having once you integrated? And I mean the teachers that were together, because you're still together.
We talk about it more now than we did then, I think, because we really didn't see each other because we were on different planning periods. And once we left school, I was living in Marietta, and they were living here. By that time, Georgia had gotten her a car.
Got her a car.
And so we didn't have time to
Thank you if
talk.
I had to.
And I gave her a husband.
And I got stuck here. Going back to school, when I went to Lithia for a purpose because the administration, the administrators there weren't that nice.
What year did you go to Lithia?
76, I believe.
When they started, that was the year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said we will not have another integrated school. We will always have an integrated school because I didn't know who they hired because there was rumor out that they're doing it for a purpose. And I told Dorothy we won't be riding to work. We live about this far from each other because I'm going to go 16 miles instead of 1 mile.
Wow, that was the advocacy in you.
Yeah, that was. And when I got to Lithia, I realized, as they say, you got in the brown patch because when I got down there, I had the administrators there was even worse, and the kids was the same. They were kids,
The kids are
and
sweet.
they weren't. The kids weren't doing well, and I graded all papers and stuff. I did everything I was supposed to. And then he tells me, then the assistant principal there tells me, you got too many failures in your class. And I said, so what's the percentage? I can beat y'all. If you want me to have just 2%, I can do 2%. If it's 40, they make 30. Well, it made them angry. And I went to the superintendent at that time, told what they had done. They took all my classes, all my academic classes from me and gave me general level classes. And I told them I didn't mind teaching kids because all kids have to be taught. So I didn't mind that. But I need a breather during the day as well because it's sometimes very difficult to do that. And so that summer I would ask him, will he change my class? Just give me one academic class. And when I get home that day, Leonard said, Leonard went with me to the meeting, and we get home, he said, gee, this phone call is for you. And I said, really? He said, yeah. And he said, sound like one of your principals. And so I get on the phone, and he said some very selected words, but I'm not going to say all of them. He just told me he's going to burn a cross in my yard tonight.
In 1976?
1976. And I said, I was not into God like I am now.
No, you didn't use
God
the words, did you?
I said, come on.
Uh-oh.
We'll be waiting on you. And we stayed up all night for that.
You really waited?
I waited up. And then, of course, I would just tell you the situation, what was going on there.
Wow.
And so they wouldn't let me alone. Jesus would not let me alone. And so I went to the superintendent and told her what's going on.
I'm sorry, that makes me teary, y'all. I'm sorry.
And my kids would write me letters because it was so bad down there. I would share my story. And so I had to file a suit. And the same year, the second year after the suit was filed against what they were doing, they weren't giving me, they sent a PPC person down there to observe me the whole time. And when she said, I don't know why I'm down here because you're one of the excellent, she gave me praises. And of course, I had to meet, we had to file a suit, and I had to sit in I'm sure how good God is. That's why I say God is so good, because they could not evaluate what they would do. They would take all my evaluation I had previously, and they all were excellent, right? All the ones they had before was just terrible. I was the worst teacher in the world, and they couldn't explain why. And then when I sued them, they wouldn't use the evaluation of that year. And that same year I was teaching, when they realized I filed, they gave me calculus, trig, algebra 2, algebra 1.
Wow.
And but it was too late because I was in the middle of a suit. Not only that same year, I was named star teacher of that in that same year from a calculus student. And I've been trying to find him ever since because I hadn't talked to him in a long time. So when we went to court, when we went to a deposition, the principal, they deposed him, and then I said I could sit in, but I had another, a law firm from Atlanta had come down to do the case. And when we sat there, I turned to Mr., about to say his name, I turned to him, I said, I didn't get that cross you were going to burn in my yard.
Sorry.
And so he said,
Thank you for making me
he
laugh.
didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. And then they asked him why did I couldn't teach academic classes. And he said, well, I think she was more suitable for the general level classes. I just felt, he said that. Well, later on in the deposition, you know how things trip you up when you're lying, right? And so when he got almost close, he said, so what does Miss Daly teach now? And he had to say calculus, trig, and all that. And he said, she's one of the best teachers we got down there.
He said that?
He said that in the deposition. And, of course, I was praying about it. And so that Monday I was supposed to go to court. I prayed, Lord, I do not want to get on the stand. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And so they settled it. And so they had to, it's a case that's been Douglas County High, it's in the Douglas County Board of Education now, that if I complained about anything while I was teaching, they would open the case up. So it was kind of rough at Lithia. I had a real hard time at Lithia.
Well, I was a student at Lithia. I graduated in '84. And every day I saw you were so beautiful. So
Well,
I never
had to keep smiling.
She dressed so neat, and I mean, you were on that first hallway behind the cafeteria, I remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
I still love the kids. Like I say, the kids were always
all of you say
awesome.
the students were okay.
Yeah.
For 32 years,
I did
the
33.
students. When did you see the change in students? So
What-
I'm.
What do you mean?
So just let me see if I can reword this. So I'm listening to Ms. Graham. You said when it was integrated, it was mostly your interaction with other teachers, administration. They were hard. Same thing with you. Ms. Sparks, you were an angel. No issues. It was fine. You're teaching psychology, so you probably could read people way before they knew. But there's a shift. Because if the students were okay, when did you see or observe that the mindset of the students began to change during integration?
Well, I only saw it at when I came to Alexander,
Okay.
and I don't know what caused that because they would come to school with rebel flags on their truck. It was the kids. It was no longer the administrators in my situation. So I don't know how and what made that happen. I didn't know whether it was where the school was located.
Right.
I just did not
That's what it
know
was.
why.
Did you see the same? Both of Ms.
No,
Sparks, Ms. Graham?
I stayed at the same school
The entire time.
the entire
Check
time.
them all out.
And I have to be honest about mine. I had one of the best departments ever.
You were department chair.
I was department chair, and I was made department chair in '73 when I got my master's. I was the only black teacher in the whole social studies department. Well, I was there 28 years at that particular school. Wow. And I was the department head all that
The
time.
entire time?
The entire time.
So you set the atmosphere.
And my kids were awesome because I get letters. I got some letters just recently from kids talking about how it made a difference in their lives. Because we were doing something that they could take with them and make a change in their lives.
Right. That is
And
awesome.
let's talk about the first integration when they picked 1 or 2, 3 blacks to throw into the Douglas County.
Oh yeah.
Can you name those 2 or 3?
That was supposed to be. That was in 1964
Okay.
when they said that you could go to the school of your choice, And we had 3 kids to come to Douglas County, to go to Douglas County because we were still here, over here in R.L. Cousins. It was Thomas Zachary, Carol Williams, and she just passed. Jackie Fowler.
Oh,
tell me
okay.
his name. Oh, Jackie
Jackie
Fowler.
Jackie Fowler.
Okay, during the time, and I've attended Douglas County way after the integration. Y'all had set the ropes for me, so when I got there, it was good. But during the times when prom season, let's talk about prom season. Come on.
That was a real problem because the parents were afraid for their kids to be mixed up with the black race. That was a big deal, and I think the parents got together and they did have a separate prom for the black kids. But the kids had gotten so used to each other. Some of the
In the
black
school
kids
day.
had white kids, and some of the white kids, they came to the, what was it called, the armory over here?
National
Yes.
Guard.
Armory right
Our
here.
kids could
Oh,
not
that-
go to their prom. So we got together as faculty, as teachers, and we pooled money and gave our kids a prom.
So the black students were not allowed,
No.
Go to that,
although they were integrated. They could
and
not
been
go
in
to.
school the whole year, but they were not. They were not
Yep, they-
allowed to go to the prom.
That's right, because I was a part of it.
And another thing, you remember facial hair, the mustache that some of the kids had begun to grow mustache, and they made our boys cut off their mustache before they could graduate.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So let's fast forward.
Okay.
We're in 2022.
Okay.
Did you want to say one more thing? Please keep
Okay.
it coming. Keep it coming.
I retired after 33 years in 2001. So I stayed off a year, and then I got bored, so I began to substitute. And we're talking about the difference in students now.
Yes.
Okay. There was such a grave difference in the behavior of students that I said, Lord, I didn't teach 33 years for you to bless me for me to go to jail. But anyway, I love teaching. I was called in for a long term, and that was your grandson's class,
Reed.
Reed. That was the last time I served because I knew I was on my way to jail and I did not need to go. Not his class, but the students
Just
were
period.
so different. I did not understand how a kid could get to the 8th grade and didn't know how to write on paper. That was way out there. So I went to the board and I drew a sheet of paper on the board with the lines, the margin, everything. And I had to tell them, on this first line, I want your name, date, and class period. That's identification. Okay? I know who you are, I know what date I gave this assignment, and I know which class you belong. These kids had begun to write up on the top of the margin, and if they didn't have enough space to finish the word out, they curve it down the side. I said, what manner of mess is this?
Oh my gosh.
So I gave these assignments, and if you did not do it as I had told you, I said, you see this red line? To the left of the line, you write nothing.
That's right.
Zero, nothing. Nothing goes out here. To the right of the line, you write as close to that line as you can without writing on top of it. So they had to change their style of writing. And if they did the assignment like I told them, and I said, you will not go outside the margin here. Okay. Honey, the parents have gone to the board in this case, have
Again.
reported me
Again.
again. And it was awful. I said, how, they would, mark out. They would mark out a whole paragraph.
So-
and I'm saying, you don't do that if you get messed up this much. Start again.
So, Miss Graham, between the time that you had retired up until the time that you subbed, how many years was that? What
I
was,
retired in 2001.
and you
I started subbing in 2002.
And you went back for some
And
more.
I did it maybe 3 or 4 years.
and
or so.
within that time it was
But it was the kids, and I'm gonna tell you what I attribute it to. this may not be all the reasons, but when you have children having children, then that child, which is a mother, does not know how to teach his child what to do because that child has not done anything. And it just goes on down the line. And I'm sure it started before 2001.
Yes.
But the parent came up to me in my classroom while I was subbing and told me that, what these things they had to write, you know, all this stuff came up, that QCC
Yes.
or something on the board and all this kind of stuff. And I said, what is QCC? You know, I finished school in 1964. I mean, you know, well, we had objectives,
Yes.
you know, okay. And so she told me that I did not write the QCC on the board, which you wrote QCC in a number, whichever the thing was. And I said, ma'am, I said, does the child know what that means? I said, now my objective is to do so and so and so. Now, if the QCC is the same thing as the objective, I understand objective when I'm telling you what I'm doing today. So she told me that I didn't know what I was doing, and she was going to take me to the board. I said, fine, you know, can do nothing to me. I'm retired. I get my retirement check.
Right.
Okay. One of the other teachers, students told, this is how the parents upheld what the kids were doing. Because they did not want to change their style that was beneficial to them. Because you're not going to get into anybody's, if they take that junk in high school, you know you're not going to get into college with it or whatever. But she told me she had 3 children and she could not afford to buy paper like that for them to. I did not allow them to write on the back of paper because they wrote so hard it made the other side unreadable. I was taken again.
Again. So, in other words, you were selling newspapers in the city of Douglasville.
You know, I'm not a mean person, but I did mean what I say. So the principal came to the room and told me, he said, Miss Graham, just keep doing what you're doing. Because literally, and they don't teach handwriting in school anymore.
No.
But it was just pathetic to let somebody slide like that.
Yes.
And that's what the difference I saw in the kids and their behavior. And so the parents would come and defend the child instead of seeing what you are trying to do to help that child, because you're not going to be in the 8th grade the rest of your life.
Right. Would you say the same, Ms. Sparks and Ms. Stanley? Is you saw the difference in the students because one of the reasons is because there was an increase of children having children? Is it was absent parents? What I mean, did you?
No, I think Miss Graham was in middle school part of her time.
And you were in high school.
I stayed in high school and I had seniors.
What did you see different?
But this was after her time. She
Yeah,
had already retired.
So you didn't go back and sub?
Honey, no. 32 years is all I
Not
had.
at all.
Well, I do tutoring now because
Okay.
I did go back for one of my student teacher. This is just one of the episodes, and one of my student teacher was pregnant, and she said, "I don't want Miss Daniel to come down here and sub for me for 6 weeks." She begged me. I said, "I don't want to come." She said, "Please, it's okay." And it was at what's the other high school name?
Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill High School, and so I go down there because Mr. Beaver, which was a person I taught, was principal there, and he asked me. He said, "So one day I went in my classroom. I'm just showing the change I noticed there at that time, and I think that was like 2000 something. I can't remember. And when I went, I had to step out of the room for a minute, and I came back, and this little boy sitting on my desk that I call my territory.
Mm-hmm.
Your
and he
space.
was sitting, and he was sitting up there on it, and I said, "What are you sitting on my desk when you got one?" And he said to me, "This is not your desk. It belongs to my parents and other taxpayers." And I said, "You got a good point." And I told the student, go down to the office, tell the principal to come up here. I need to talk to him for a minute. Mr. Beaver come down, because he knew me real well. I said, this person told me that desk belonged to him. So since it belonged to him, I don't think I need to be here. He said, you can go home for the rest of the day. And he is in school suspension for the rest of the semester. But I appreciated that, that he told him that. But that's a change. A kid, when I was teaching, would never tell me that this belonged to the taxpayers and him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was
Now, I got a hard
See, I didn't
question,
go back to
and then we hear from our listening audience out. What happened when you give one of those Caucasian kids a F, and they take it home or they fail, and give it to their parents? Did you all get phone calls?
I didn't get any phone calls. I mean, maybe that line was too big. I lived in Marietta. But I made a habit. I graded. If I gave you an assignment, I graded it. And I recorded it. And I let you see your paper, and I kept it. Because I knew something like that would come up.
Back there during the integration days.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, and also when I started, I'm going to tell you another thing I learned about some teachers. Some of the teachers had gotten sorry, too. I subbed at, what's the one over there by you, Tanya? It's a middle school.
Mason Creek.
No, it's a middle school.
Fairplay.
Off of
I don't know.
off of Fairburn Road, and you turn to the right.
Malcolm
Chestnut Law.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. I was subbing at the school, and I was subbing in this man's class. And beneath his desk were piles and piles and piles of papers that he had not graded. Now, I'm sure some of those children got Fs, okay? And for the papers that he did grade. But if you look at the ones beneath the desk, if he had graded them, that grade may have been better than an F. Right. So you were punishing the school. And he made a negative comment, racial comment. And I looked at him and bucked my eyes. I didn't open my mouth, but my eyes stretched, I guess, bigger than a 50-cent piece. And he knew he had said the wrong thing. But I did not like substituting in his class because I saw that he was trifling. You don't give kids homework and don't grade it.
Right. Yeah.
That's taking up their time, wasting paper that their parents have bought, and probably taking them away from some chores that they had to do. That's disrespectful. Just like you want a kid to respect you, you have to respect the kid. But I could not believe that was the difference. It just seemed like it was a flip. But it also, one of the kids told me, this was at Chestnut Law. I'm always getting something in the trouble.
It's a good trouble.
Yeah.
Good trouble.
Good trouble.
I like that. I like that. As far as good trouble.
You don't come to class late and without an excuse. This is middle school. And so when the kid got to the door, I say, why are you late? We're going to have a fight drill. I'm having an asthma attack. I said, your medication is down in the office that you just passed. Why did you pass the office if you were sick? And you still late? Said, I knew that was a lie. So I said something, and she said, well, I'm going to call my mom. And I whipped out my phone. Here it is, honey. Please call her. The point being, Mama takes up. Okay, fire drill came about a minute after. This chick runs out the door. You don't run out of the door having an asthma attack. I have asthma. You know what I'm saying? Yes. But they got away with stuff because parents backed them up.
Right. No.
They knew how much they could take.
Yeah, I was going to say, getting back to your question about black, white kids' grades, I think you mentioned that. About
yes.
How they react. But because, even though I had a strict class, but I was always fair to them. And they never, I never had an encounter with a parent, a white parent, complained about a grade they got, except when I was at Lithia, members on the Board of Education, he complained about, because linear equation, why you going to be X plus B, and he said that he gave me X for slope and it was M, and he argued that, and that was his. But that's the only issue I've had, because I started out with, everybody got 100 today. If you never turned to my class, and they were motivated. And I had, at Alexander, I had like maybe one black kid, the rest of white. But they abide by the rules, and I never got anything that said that my child got an F, and I didn't think they should have. I didn't ever get that. They just sort of, because I sent things home and let them know where I stood. And the first day of school, I always said to them, y'all look at me very careful. That's all I always said. You notice this beautiful tan I have? I'm going to have it in June. And if you're having issues with that, you need to go home and talk to your parents about it, and I would gladly have you changed to a class. And I never had anyone to do that. You know, so I didn't have that kind of issue as far as grades are concerned. I had problems at Lithia when they, not Lithia, Alexander, when they brought the flags on the truck, and I reported that to the principal there at the time, and that soon stopped. But I just shared things. But I tried to be very fair with them from the beginning, so they'll know that this is my expectation.
Wow. This is so, I could go on and on. I like to ask hard questions. Do you, just in your experience of teaching, was it easier, maybe easier is not the best word, to teach, for black teachers to teach in an all-black school? Do black children learn better from a black teacher?
I don't think this is a difference. It's it's depending on who's doing the teaching, because it was about the same in both schools for me. I was at R.L. Cousins from 1963 to 1967, and then I went there, and it's about the same.
I personally think that Dorothy makes a good point. I've never taught in an all-black school. I went to one, but I never taught in one. But my thinking about that is that in an all-black school, at least black kids get to move up. You get to have a valedictorian, you get to have a salutatorian, but in the integrated school, we got swallowed up in the integrated schools, I think, because I had a rank when I was in high school because it was a black school.
Right.
And I think there, I don't know what, I'm not saying that but they cheat in grades or anything, but I just know that that'll be one of my complaints, that we don't have a black valedictorian because we get swallowed up in the system. We don't have a black salutatorian. We don't have, that's the only problem I see as far as.
And that was during the transition from being going from a segregated to an integrated, because now you do have valedictorians and of all shades and colors.
And sometimes they're cheated. This is not a brag; it's just a fact. I had grandchildren going to Villa Rica, and when my oldest grandchild finished Villa Rica, which is the highest,
There.
okay. She had the grade, never straight A, no absentees, anything, but she was not chosen. And when they tried to defend it, it was some off the wall reason why she could not be there. So I got my daughter, and we went to the board, and they tried to justify it.
Do they put you in timeout again?
But the proof is in the pudding. She was a straight A student. And she'll tell you when your audience come up how that happened. They were super softball players at Villa Rica. But they bench. Well, when they was in trouble, they let them.
Right.
They are, the second child went to Florida. Where's the Gators?
Florida.
Okay. Made the softball team. Anybody can't get on that softball team down there. She made the softball team. But she wasn't good enough to play
Right here at home.
At home.
Oh,
So there were still prejudices, and they played our kids when it was convenient. If they were losing a game and they knew this child could play, they would play them.
Mm.
You know. But going back to Marietta, I forgot my train of thought. That's 80 years old. But anyway, the children.
And you look great.
The children were good. If you don't, a child will treat you right if you treat them right.
Right.
If you don't bully them, they won't. You know, I had rules in my classroom. I didn't have a whole list. I'm the boss in here. Okay, I didn't use the word boss, but I'm,
Right.
I'm head of this.
That's what they do.
I put names on my desk. This is middle school. And that's where you sat.
Assigned seats.
You were responsible for anything that was on that desk when you left out of there. If there were ink marks on there, you put them there because they were not there when you came. I made all the kids clean their desks. You don't leave trash in there. I made them respect the janitors, whoever. You know, just because that's their job, you don't mess up something just because it's their job.
Right.
You know, I treated them fairly. So I didn't have that kind of problem with the majority of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, most of them came from the parent. If I saw a kid that needed lunch, if I didn't bring that much money, that kid would eat and I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because who wants to sit
That's
up
just
there
what
and
you
eat and
do.
the child is not eating?
Right.
You know. But they love me for it. I never was teacher of the year. I never wanted to be. But I've had so many to come back and say, if you didn't tell me that I could do such and such and so, I would not have tried it. That meant more to me than being teacher of the year, teacher of the month, or whatever the case may be. Because I knew I had helped somebody, even if it's just one.
And it had nothing to do with whether the student was black or white, green or yellow. It was because they were a student.
They were students.
let's jump along. I want to get this question in before we get late, and then hear from our listening audience. When you all first was integrated at Douglas County, were you all allowed to go into the teacher's lounge, or did they have separate location for you all to eat? Because we still had the colored water fountain and all of that.
Although you were integrated inside the school.
We couldn't go to the theater unless we go up top.
But you were
No,
integrated.
they couldn't do that in the school because see,
Okay.
the federal government made that
Right, and
mandate,
then funding.
and they had to go by that. And just one school for all of the high school kids, and everybody else had to go to the school in their community.
Good.
Okay.
Restroom.
Here she go again.
The book I was telling you about, A Choice of Weapons, the principal told me that book taught their kids how to cuss. So I said, if you don't mind, let's walk down to this girl bathroom.
Okay.
I said, now you read this wall. The children that had the book maybe a week or two. You can tell, all right. All right. I said, now you tell me whether or not this came from the book.
Mm. Interesting.
That was interesting, but we were allowed to go into the lounges and things like that.
Okay.
And I made good
One lunchroom.
friends at Douglas County. Kathy Abercrombie,
Mm-hmm.
Larry Gamage, Mr. Clark.
Mm-hmm.
There were several of them were nice, but there were those that were not going to change the way if Jesus came. And they stayed that way the remainder of my time on that hallway.
Good.
Councilman Davis, can I ask one more question? before
Yes,
the
ma'am.
audience?
Help yourself.
So, this question is about math. I don't know if it's just a perception of what students think, and it's not just black students. It's black and white students, and it's lots of students. When we hear the question asked to some students, what's your favorite subject? Or what subject do you not like?
It's not
they
math, is it?
always say math. Why is that? And some students, even my own, have said, because you tutor My daughter, Courtney. I think you did, Gabby, too. But I just can't get math. And they have that in their mind. Why is that? And I've heard it for years and years and years, and I still hear it to this day.
Because they've been told that. You know, they've been told that math is hard. And until they get in there and find, God, this, and a perfect example was a kid told me, she said, I had to come in your class because all the other classes failed, and I hated to come here because I did not want you to teach. I heard how strict you were, and you didn't take anything from students. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you got put in here, you know. And so at the end, I do my objective for the day in math. I give several examples. They keep a notebook. They had to turn a notebook in, and they get 100. If they had the date, they said, well, suppose I'm not here that day. I start taking up the date that I know everybody has been here. And so this same young lady at the end of that semester came up to me, and she said, that was the best decision I made because I found out that it's how you teach math, how you relate it to real life stuff. If you can relate it to something, then they'll get it. A little boy was sitting in my class, and he had on this polo shirt, and we were talking about interest that day. And I said, let's call him John. I said, John, how much that shirt your mom paid? He said, $45. I said, well, it didn't cost but $2. And you know, he got irritated because I said that. And he said, no, I know what she paid for it. I said, no, it costs $2. They have to pay the workers here. They had to pay whoever, the CEO of the company. They had to pay the air conditioning. They had to pay. When I got through, he's like, I see what you're talking about. Cool. So if you make it fun, you make it what they can relate to, it means so much more. But so many people just turn off because as a student, when I was in math, I learned the times table by memorization.
Yes.
But now, if you teach them why, what that means, like you tell me 2 times 3 is 6. Well, if you write 3 down twice and show them that's what you're talking about, it's made easy. And that's what I really tried to do. This young lady that's at Kennesaw, she was at my house Sunday night, and she said, I'm in vet, I'm doing vet, and how many more math classes I'm going to have to take? I said, I don't know. She said, well, when we were in school, how was that taught? I said, word problems. I said, when you get a word problem, you have to tell them, suppose this happened to you. Suppose that's the case. And I said, and if it happens, then this is how you would solve that problem, you know. I make them look at a rectangle. I didn't tell them about a rectangle. This is what a rectangle looks like.
So you took time.
Yeah, I took time to explain to them what it was about. And kids really would catch on if you tell them.
Yes.
But because kids learn different ways, abstract, concrete, and most time you have to have a visual thing for math, you know, to get it. And sometimes people really get it. I mean, like my husband hadn't gotten it yet. I was telling Dorothy just the other day that we were measuring a room. And he was measuring, he said, okay, this is 10 feet. And I said, yeah. And I said, he said, this is 10 feet. And I said, well, I already measured it. And I said, I already divided by 12, and I got the answer. But he won't listen because he always tell me, Mr. Mitchell, who taught at something, he said, well, he told me, and this is another good example. He said, I said, -4 plus 2 is a -2. And I said, I'll tell you why. He said, no, it's -2 because Mr. Mitchell said it. All you have to remember is that take the sign of the largest, you know, he go through this whole thing. I said, don't you want to know why? You know, don't you want to know that you're playing to the kids, especially the kids I'm tutoring now, football. I relate that to them. And to the girls, I tell them about checkbook, keeping up with their finances and stuff. So that can make it easier.
So this is like so awesome. I could go on and on. You all have set the path, leaving a legacy for life. For life. I mean, just my emotions of listening to what you dealt with and where you are now. I mean, my emotions were teary 1 second and mad and laughing all at one time. Can you imagine what the students were feeling?
Yeah.
But I applaud you. I mean, I get teary now, and you're still standing. We got to do this. We got to do education again like next year. This is just not enough time.
And I just wonder, how do y'all teach us out of them old books that they used to send to
Tell
our
me,
real cousins
y'all
with no
act- so-
pages in them?
Did all of you teach Councilman Davis?
Councilman
remember
Davis
that.
used to wait on me coming down 92. He didn't have about 2 minutes to walk to school. He'll wait on me on the top of the hill so I could pick him up and take him to school.
She drives so fast when she put on brakes, she be done pass me.
Did you teach him?
I got a witness on her passing somebody. Because when she would come by and pick me up from Marietta, I had to run behind the car to catch her. She's over there. Yep, you're right.
Oh, turn my head.
Miss Sparks, did
You know
you
what?
teach?
When you're standing still,
Yeah, you can see
things seems to be moving
going fast.
So I don't know. You hear somebody say that, and then you pick up on it.
Yes.
That
But
happened.
this lady right here taught me how to pass the policeman. So she can't
Miss
call.
Sparks.
Well, she can't talk about anything.
She's talking about the lady over there.
And one thing about when you all taught us, you all knew our parents, and we didn't cut up in school
Yeah.
because you all knew them personally. And that's one thing that I respect. Yes, Miss Sparks taught me, and Mr. Graham taught me, but we didn't cut up because Mr. Stewart had a long strap. And Hazel Burton would welcome you into the office. And she would sit you there and you waited your time to get strapped. And Mr. Stewart did take the strap out and give us 2 or 3 licks. But when we sent us home, we acted good the next day because we didn't want to go back. Mr. Bell used to try to whip you.
Lord.
So can we hear from the listening audience? Do y'all
Can I
have
make
any
this statement
questions?
before you do that?
Sure,
Yes, ma'am.
absolutely.
My dad taught us, and he finished high school, taught us, he said, now, you may not make an A in your subject, but you can make an A in behavior because you know how to act. You can use common sense. And if you got less than that, you heard from him because he said that it told the person on the outside whether or not you've been trained or not. And that's the same way when you were walking the street. Whatever they see out there on the outside, that's what they think that you are because they may not ever get a chance to see you again. So you let your first impression be a good one. It may not always be right,
Right.
but let it be good because you can behave. And if we, it didn't come out of a textbook, but it was a good lesson.
Did you want to comment? Okay. Yes.
Yes.
For the transition, the integration transition that you ladies experienced, was there anything that made it easy? Did anything happen for you that made that transition easier to deal with?
The thing that made it easy for me with this transition during integration were the students. The students were students. They were nice, they were respectful, and they did what you asked of them. So that made it easier for you, the teacher, any teacher, to do his job because anytime you have to take time out to correct and to do things that are not planned, then you're taken away from the learning time.
Okay.
So the students made it easier for me.
All right, Ms. Graham.
Okay.
Ladies?
Miss Sparks?
One of the things, we had to keep something called a register. And when we got over there was no such thing as a register.
So would that be the same as the attendance
The attendance.
for students?
Right, you had to do all of that and send it in and this kind of stuff. But when we got over there, that was a big deal. Do y'all remember that? How you had
Yes,
to do all
I
that?
remember that.
Georgia probably didn't ever have
No,
that.
because Georgia
She came in
the
before
year-
we got out of there, yeah.
We did it the last year before Georgia came.
That's great.
But it wouldn't have bothered her because
Yeah.
it was mathematical.
Yes, and it was it would
So
be
it was-
easy
That was
for
a
her.
big
easier
deal
for
for me
her
not to have to do
because
that.
We had a teacher, Mr. George. He could look at something and he could figure it out right there. And I said, "Hey, Mr. George, why you learn that?" Because he could do it and it didn't take him time. It took us hours to do that
yes,
thing.
Wow.
yes. You had to keep a tally on all your kids. And
Skip college and show y'all how to do it.
Yes, you should have.
had
The
a lot
best of
going
both
on with
worlds.
that.
And do y'all remember the question that one of our engineers asked? Do y'all remember the question?
I'll reiterate that question. We
Okay.
had a question So over time, let's take out race. Over time, what has evolved your relationship between your students then and now? What do you see has evolved? Did I say that right?
Well,
You know, they're scattered all around, but I still get a lot of Facebook texts from my kids that tall, and I'm not on there often. And when I get some, they say you have 179 kids. And I go through and look through them. Most of them are my kids that have gone and done great things, and they send me letters and little notes and stuff like that. My husband went to pick up breakfast from IHOP the other day, and the lady said, "The lady that called in for this order, her name was Dorothy Sparks." He said, "Yes, that's the one I want." She said, "Did she teach at Douglas County High School?"
I hear that often. I hear that a lot.
And she sent me her name and number.
Oh, isn't that awesome? You feel that, Miss Graham? Say the same.
I get more from Marietta than I do from Douglas County, and maybe for two reasons. I've changed names several times.
But your face is still the same. You're still beautiful.
And I'm about 130 pounds heavier, so they may think it's somebody else. But those that I do run into, they're glad to see me, and I'm glad to see them. And it doesn't matter. I went into a store in Marietta, and I had to teach those students that could not speak English. And I had as
So
second
ELA, yes.
So I bought this Hooked on Phonics, and the school wouldn't buy it, so I bought it, and I put it in my classroom, and it taught those kids how to speak. But the point being, even though they were on a machine, somebody had to start them somewhere.
Right.
So it was some years later, I walked into this store, and this young woman said, "You told me to speak English, you told me to speak English."
Aww.
And that made me feel
I
good,
know.
because they take the same test our kids take, and if they can't speak it, they can't read it, and your scores go down. So for those kids, and it was quite a number that did this, I was glad to be of some help to them.
Absolutely.
You know.
And then to have a student identify you years and years later.
Even
to
though
say,
I had changed.
even though you had changed, but they remembered
They
something.
remembered.
Yes.
You know, and some here I meet in Douglasville, some of them, one that teaches over to Sheltering Arms. And she's black, but it doesn't matter, you
Right.
know, as long as they do what they do. She told me, if you would not have told me that it didn't matter where I came from, because I'm the fourth of 5 children, and my parents didn't have money. I can remember being embarrassed because my dad said, "Go into the financial office and tell Miss Divers I'll pay her when I get some money." Now, we had 3 in college at the same time.
Wow.
And so it was embarrassing, but because we knew each other, her husband was the presiding elder of our church, and he paid when he got the money, but it was still embarrassing. So I never thought that I could go to college because I knew my parents were not rich people. And so learning that I could, because I did,
Right.
I didn't mind passing that information on to other kids. Just because you live in the projects does not mean that you have to stay there.
That's right.
Don't become complacent with what you have. My high school principal said, if you aim for the sky, you may hit the fence. But if you aim for the fence, you may hit the ground. So you always keep your aim up high. You may not reach it, but you'll get farther than where you are.
Very good wisdom.
I missed the question. What was the question?
Oh my God.
Over
I thought you were
No, I wasn't sure. I had another answer because I misunderstood her question.
over time,
Uh-huh.
where with the relationship that you have with your students, and this is not how I paraphrased it earlier, but over time, what have you seen that have evolved? Like just your relationship, the connectivity, not just because it's take race out of it.
I guess it has evolved because I remember my husband was, I'm trying to think if he was a judge a long time ago. And this kid come in my house and to get a warrant. And, well, he was an officer of the law. I think I mentioned to one of you earlier. He was an officer of the law. He came to get a warrant. And when he walked in, he said, "Miss Danley." And I knew him too. I said, "I'm so proud of you." I said, "I'm so proud of you, a police officer." And he said, "Well, Miss Danley, all your students either police officer or they're all in jail." You know, I said, "Because you know you had a strict thing going in your class." But that was kind of funny. But yeah, so similar to what Dorothy and Priscilla said, that I'll hear someone say that Miss Danley, where does she live? I need to tell her I thank her for, but I know she was strict, and I knew I was because I was caring about the kids. And I just want to thank her because what I learned, I'm doing it now. And my pharmacist is at Kroger here in Douglasville, and the young lady that's the pharmacist there, I taught her. And every time I went there for something one day because I had run out of pills, and she always say hello when she's not busy. And I said, "They won't send me my prescription. I don't know what to do." She said, "I got you, Miss Dan. I got you 5 extra pills, and that'll last you till you go back to the doctor." And I was in there just the other morning, and she said, "Hey, Miss Dan," and then she told someone else. Now that was the best teacher I ever had in my whole life. Now I know my son is at Georgia, but I need to get him to get tutoring for her. So when you start referring people to me, you feel real good about it. You feel like you've done something that matters, and I always like it, and I enjoy it. And I do tutor kids from kindergarten up through adults to college. I tutor them all.
And you're still tutoring.
I'm still tutoring.
Wow.
And I love it so much, and I get joy when they got it.
That's awesome.
I think one episode was about a year ago. This young man said his parents, both of them had graduated from college, and the daughters were doing real well out somewhere west, and he was just wanted to get out of school. He could care less. So she said, "We're gonna send him to you." And so he was taking trig, and I asked him why did he choose trig. Because my parents told me to choose trig. I said, "Well, how did you do in algebra?" I saw that question first. And at the end of the session, going toward May graduation, he said, "I'm going to college." And his dad and mom called me and said, "I don't know what you did to my son, but he's going to college." So that was my most recent story about a kid.
That's awesome. Do we have any other questions from our audience?
No, it seemed like we get into the closing remarks from our guests.
Right.
She has a question.
Okay.
I commend you ladies for the job well done that you did in the past and currently still doing, because my daughter was tutored by Miss Georgie Danley about 5 years ago. But my question is for Mrs. Sparks. You were over your department. I heard you say you were over your department.
Mm-hmm.
How many black teachers did you have in your department? I was curious about that.
I was the only black teacher during my whole tenure. And I only interviewed one black person the whole time. But I was, how when someone retires, you get someone in that place. We just didn't have but one black person to apply for a position there. And then he did not get it because he was way down the line of those who would, apply for the position. I was the only black in it for the whole time.
And today at Douglas County, there's a gentleman there, been there probably about 50 years. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Forsh.
Say it one more time.
Chet Forsh.
Chet Forsh.
He's still working.
Still working.
Wow.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ladies, we will have to continue. Maybe a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. This recording will be available for life. for your children and their children's children. Although we talked about Black history, I heard all of you say it didn't matter to you whether the student was Black, white.
Exactly.
It didn't matter. It's a student, and your goal was to teach. But it is so important that people hear what you had to experience back before integration. The stories that you've told today, I don't know, only by the grace of God that you withstood. Thank you. If you had one comment that you could say to a teacher today in the middle of a pandemic, what would you say? Each one of you, what would you say to the teacher today? Not just the pandemic, but just the teacher.
If you don't like kids, you don't enjoy what you're doing, get out of the business. Because that child belongs to someone and they need to be fair in teaching that kid. Just don't do teaching. You know, find something else that you like, because that's going to be what you're going to do for the majority part of your life. And if you're stressing out now because you got kids that you don't want to teach, and you're not, I can't wait till 4 o'clock get here, I can't wait till noon get here, then you're in the wrong place. Profession, yeah.
Good wisdom.
I would say to treat the kid as if you wanted to be treated when you were a student. You have to let the kid know that you care about him, because you may be the only one that does care.
Right.
You have to show that kid love, and it's the golden rule. It's scriptural. You know, love like you want to be loved. That may not be verbatim, but the objective is to love and to show it. You can say all day until your tongue get bigger than my feet, I love you, but if you don't show me that, then that's not a fact. That is just a statement. So I would say let that kid know that he's important. And remember that all kids don't learn at the same rate of speed, and they don't learn the same way. So you have to adapt and adopt different methods by which you teach that child so he can understand it. If I understand and Dorothy doesn't understand it, half of your job is done. All of it is not done. Yes, it may take extra time. It may take an extra set of lesson plans. But you have to learn that all kids are important, and it's not the only ones that are able to do for themselves. Those kids that are, what kind of kids you had in your class? The high.
Oh, yeah.
The ones with the high IQ, academic.
Right.
High
Program
academic.
challenge.
Most of those kids can do for themselves. But that kid that can't do for himself, that's the one that needs your attention. So you have to, whether you like it or not, and as Georgia said, if you don't like it, it's the wrong profession for you, because children are important and you are shaping lives.
That's right.
Thank you. Wow.
And that's the bottom line. If you don't want to teach and you don't like people and you don't like the kids, find another
Occupation.
vocation.
Another one.
And be encouraging. I'm saying that, and this is off the whole subject, sort of like.
It's okay.
I have a granddaughter named Ryan, okay? And when she just zoomed through school. She did so well. So one day she was in the 9th grade, and she was talking to me, and I said, Ryan, I challenge you. I challenge you just to be the salutatorian of your class. And she said, why, Mom? I said, because I was say all in my class. She said, you really were? You never shared that? And I said, no, I didn't think it was necessary to brag about that. She said, you were Sam? I said, yes. So she went on, and she was valedictorian at Douglas County High School, right? And as soon as she come outside, graduation, she said, did I beat you? And I said, I forgot to tell you one thing. She said, what was that? I want to us in the class.
But you challenged her.
I challenged her.
That's right.
Yeah, it was more than 2, but you know, I try to let her know you're just one above me.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I am just, I'm at awe. I am totally at awe. Councilman Davis, I think you're going to have to close this one out. I want to keep going.
I'm going to have to bring these ladies back again. I tell you, not on this set, bring them to 1 hour meeting because we got to give them something. And I tell you, there has just been a day of just joy. We're going through this pandemic and with the educators, and I really appreciate them taking the time out. I know it was the last minute, but I appreciate the love and the prayers that you all put through, and continue, and anything that the city and we can do, and just let us know. We're gonna bring you back, and we'll do a proclamation. We'll bring you back doing Black History Month. What do you think?
You know, I don't want to end it. This is awesome. But to the audience, to our listening audience, again, thank you so much for tuning in to continuing our Black History Month in 2022, the city of Douglasville. Wait for next year.
You're now dismissed without a benediction.
Right.